Hello everyone, it is Alex here, CEO of Financial Executive Women. And as always, I am super pumped to be here. Well, every day we show up 3 days a week, but Thursdays is one of my favorites as I get to be here with my fantastic co-host, Mick Philippou, who's the Chief Customer Officer for Sandstone Technology. Now on Thursdays, if you're new to this community, and welcome, Mick and I interview a whole array of incredible thought leaders, business leaders and experts around this current challenge of transformation. So this series is a digital first of banking transformation, and it came about because we asked you, our community, what are you thinking about digital transformation? We all know that it's more than just tech. And of course, in the last few months, this has absolutely been in the spotlight. How do we use technology? But also, we've got consumers, we've got staff, we've got legacy systems and everything else. So that's why we're bringing you this series on Thursdays. Now, for those of you who are new, as I said, welcome. FEW is a membership organisation. We are all about the positive progression of women and advocating for women in financial services and, of course, in fintech as well. So we're all about community and networking with purpose and mentoring and a whole array of amazing things. So this is just one of the things we do. And Mick, I am so thrilled to be here as always with you. Take it away, my friend.
Good afternoon, Alex, and hello to all of our listeners and audience viewers, wherever you might be. You're right, it's a very exciting time, very exciting period in spite of the fact that we're in the middle of an endemic, albeit it's wonderful to see that Australia has all those things under control. I think, 0 cases in the last 3 days in terms of locally contracted COVID cases. So that's a wonderful result. But very exciting to be here. We've got another wonderful guest. We've been speaking to all the thought leaders in banking and transformation across the Australian, New Zealand, and also the United Kingdom market. And today is no different. We have a wonderful guest that's joining us who has a background in not only with big banks in the United Kingdom as well as the Australian market, but also with the neo-banking sector, again, in both the European as well as the Australian market. So before I introduce her, I might just throw to some of the guests that are coming up over the course of the next few weeks. We have next week none other than Bendigo and Adelaide Bank's CEO and Managing Director, Marnie Baker. We're very much looking forward to speaking with Marnie and all the things they're doing from a Bendigo Bank perspective to win in the new digital battleground. And then following that, we have Martine Milicic, who's the country head for HSBC New Zealand. Again, very innovative business and obviously one of the largest global businesses in HSBC. But today we have a wonderful guest, Melissa Christy from 86400, arguably the leading neobank in Australia. And for those of you that haven't met Melissa, I might just take the liberty to read through her background profile. She has over 20 years experience in financial services, 15 years specialising in mortgages in product or product development roles, both here and in the United Kingdom. Melissa worked for 2 online banking startups in the UK, where she worked on their mortgage proposition. She also developed and launched Virgin Money Australia's home loan business in 2016. Melissa has been at 86400 for the last 2.5 years and is responsible for the 86400 lending business. Now, prior to launch, her focus was on designing and developing the home loan business from scratch. Please welcome Melissa Christy to our program. Now, Melissa, you have a fantastic background in banking and financial services, covering both digital and product. Tell us a little bit about your history and what led you to be specialising in product and in particular in banking.
Thanks for that introduction, Mick. I guess my first job out of university was actually at Westpac as a grad, and I was put into the mortgage product department. So I started in mortgage product. I've been in and out of mortgage product for the last 20 odd years, and I've really never left it. And working for some of the bigger banks, but then got to work on some online startups in the UK was absolutely amazing to be able to be part of something new. And I guess that's how I've got to where I am today. But mortgage product management is pretty much where I've started and where I've stayed.
So Melissa, Mick knows this. I always love to go a bit further back. So when you were a little girl, was it mortgage products that you dreamt of?
No, not at all.
I love the pathway, right? Because, we all end up, and you're right, like, sounds like, you fall into something and then you discover a love or a talent and you keep going. But what were the early years like that sort of led you to that start of your career?
Well, look, I actually come from a fully banking family, so banking was not something I wanted to do. I did a marketing degree. I wanted to work for somewhere really exciting. And when I was very young, I just wanted to be famous. That's what I wanted to be. So that didn't work out. So we went into banking. No, seriously though, when I was finishing uni, I applied for every grad job that there was going in marketing. And I got a job at Westpac in a product team, so not quite marketing, but close enough. And that's where I started, and that's where I've stayed. But it's always given me a good experience.
So 86,400 today, and we'll jump all over the place. So please forgive us. There's so many questions to ask, but one just sprung to mind. 86,400 today, very exciting neobank that's leading the charge. We're seeing it all over the press. You guys have wonderful products. You have a wonderful user experience, and really starting to make great traction and inroads in acquiring customers. Tell us about mortgages. How has that landscape changed in terms of being able to actually offer and consume a mortgage from back when you started in those Westpac days as a grad till fast forward now to 86,400 days? What are some of the things you've got to think about that are actually different and solving those product challenges?
I guess, the big thing is just how manual the mortgage process is, and to be honest, largely still is out there today. It's a largely manual process. So lots of paper, lots of documents, and I guess where we are today is that we don't need any of those documents. We can rely on data. We can do everything digitally. It's just that not everyone is there yet. The beauty of developing something from scratch is you can look at every part of the process and work out how you can do it better, and how you can do it without human intervention. And that was some of the thinking that went through when we were developing it. But obviously larger established lenders out there don't have the opportunity to do that. It's harder to do it because of all their legacy systems. But I guess that's the journey I've seen, that something that's done completely on paper, including a handwritten application, to now, eliminating that document out of the whole process.
Lisa, can you give us a bit of an idea? Because as Mick says, so well known, but I think for some of our community who might not be quite in the space, I think it's actually worthwhile. Can you tell us a bit about 86,400 and, not just the product and what you do, but I love, and I know Mick does as well. Like, I love to understand the genesis of the organisation. It's a challenger brand, and as you say, you don't have the legacy systems. You can be more responsive, and we had the privilege, chatting behind the scenes about what it takes to iterate so fast. Like, it's a different culture, it's a different mindset, and all those sorts of things. So I want to get into all of that, but maybe as a start, it'd be really good for those listening who actually aren't familiar with 86,400. Tell us a bit about the organisation and what you stand for.
Yep, so 86,400, we call ourselves Australia's first smart bank, and commonly people call us a neobank. But I guess we are a bank that has started from scratch. We're smart because we do things differently. We're a mobile-based bank, so you can't use internet banking on a laptop or a computer. You can only access your accounts on your mobile, because that's what customers are saying that they do. But we're all about helping people take control of their money. So what does that mean? It means we don't want them just to come to our app to look at what their bank account balance is. We want to help them save money. So that might be helping them connect all their bank accounts in one place, so they can see all their ING, their Commonwealth Bank, their ME Bank, whatever they've got, all in our app. So that helps them understand where their money's at, and we will show them how much money they have based on all the accounts that they've connected. We also help them with their bills. So we predict from their past behaviour what bills are coming up, so they can see, so they don't get caught out. They can see what bills are coming up and an approximate amount based on on what we've seen before. So we're all about helping them manage their money, which is more than just being a bank and giving them an app to make transfers and make, you know, bill payments, etc. We want to help them actually get on top of their money.
And so with that in mind, I mean, what have some of the biggest challenges been? I mean, how are you, what's the process, I guess, for getting in the heads of your consumers who are saying, we don't want that, we want to, because you're right, you're talking about more than just banking, it's how we live. How do you integrate a really essential service into the day-to-day how it's working? What are some of the ways that you really tap into that consumer psyche that probably some of the big, more established guys can't do?
Look, we do loads of customer research. So every iteration and feature that's coming out goes to customer research. We show customers, we show them the design of the screens, we ask them about upcoming features. We obviously get a lot of feedback from our customers also on what they want out of the app and what features that they would like to see us work on next. And we also have that on our website. We actually have the roadmap of what's coming up. So we have a lot of engagement with both our current customers, but also through research, potential customers to understand what they're looking for.
That customer research and obviously understanding where the market's going is critical. I might just go back one step to on the genesis and the origin of 86400 because obviously you guys have been working away on it for a number of years and we're now starting to see the fruits of all that exceptional labour that you guys have put in as a company. In terms of trends or some of that benchmarking in starting 86400, you know, where was the inspiration? Where did that come from? And because you have a very impressive management as well as a board team that, you know, that oversees the entity as well. Can you take us through a little bit of that history? Because I know that obviously your chairman was one of the founders of Adam Bank and
Yep.
you know, which was a market leader and a pioneer over in the UK market. Do you want to talk us through a bit about that and what learnings and guidance you guys have been able to have and seek as a result?
Yeah, so actually the idea for it came from our CIO, Brian Parker. He actually worked at Cuscal and it was his idea to start the bank. He looked at what was being done in European markets and thought that white labelling something he could do, but then when he looked under the hood of some of these neobanks in Europe, he actually thought it was much easier to build it himself. So he started tinkering away and working on it, as you do. Yes, he's a very smart man. He used to be the CIO at ING Direct many moons ago when they started up. And then Anthony Thompson got involved, and obviously he's amazing. He set up 2 banks in the UK, more recently the Atom Bank, and so he came and to have his knowledge of you know, how to set it up and you know, approaching investors, and he's obviously a driving force behind what we've got here today. And
in terms of so you've gone from, you know, setting it up yourselves, looking over into the United Kingdom market and having you know, these critical and wonderful leaders and people that have that background and experience. What are you guys doing anything differently at 86400 based on some of those learnings in looking over your shoulder in other markets from the neo-banking landscape or smart banking landscape? Apologies, I need to correct myself.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, look, I think from a neo-banking perspective, we're the only ones that have launched a transaction account, savings account and home loan all in the first year. Our home loan. Congratulations,
that's a massive achievement. I think, you know, that is, as you say, that's a first. And when you look at the big banks, the larger organisations, they would love to be able to do a fraction of that based on, you know, what's happened historically. So I think congratulations, that is massive.
Yeah, and the two must come together. You can't have deposits without home loans, right? So it makes sense. So we got home loans out as soon as we could, which I think was about 9 weeks after we launched transaction. Well, we launched the bank actually. We launched the bank, and then 9 weeks later we launched with mortgages. But I guess the thing, and speaking more about mortgages, I guess, which is closer to my heart, the thing that we have done differently with mortgages is really understand what are the pain points out there for both customers and brokers. We are 100% broker channel at the moment, but it was really understanding what are those broker pain points. And the key things that the brokers were crying out for was faster time to approval and less documents to submit with an application. So they were the two key things that in building the mortgage business that I focused on. How can we get a quicker approval? Well, we can get a quicker approval if we cut out those documents. How do we cut out those documents? Going through big lenders, other lenders, supporting document checklists and actually doing an Excel spreadsheet and go, why do they need that? Do we need it? And if we need it, how could we use data instead? And it was just coming up with all those options of what we could use instead of collecting a piece of paper from a customer. So what we have created is the first digital home loan for brokers. So there's no one that uses customer data and sends that all the way through the process and uses that in the assessment process. So we've been able to cut out things like, rental agreements and pay slips and paper statements and all those things that you need to verify. We get the data up front, verify up front the data before it even gets to us. So that means the back office doesn't have to do it.
And to echo mixed sentiments, that is, you're saying it's so understated when our guests talk, isn't it, Mick, about, I've done this because, you're kind of living it. But wow, I mean, this is huge. I think any of us who know what it takes to even launch a new bank, apart from everything else, and then follow that up. I'd love to talk a bit, we were talking a bit before about, the type of people and, the mindset, because everything you're talking about, from even what you just described, it's a problem-solving mindset, it's curiosity, it's questioning existing kind of ways that have always been done and not accepting them and thinking, well, how can we do it differently? Like that for me, speaks right to culture and the types of skills and people that you're attracting that have, I think it's a very different mindset. Can you talk to us a bit about that?
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And it's a very, very fast-paced environment. From the app point of view, we're getting new features out every 2 weeks. From the home loan point of view, we're making changes constantly because although what we've launched out there is great, it's not perfect, and we want to keep reiterating and making that better. So the mindset is definitely, you've got to have a passion and a drive to make it a better experience. But you've also got to be fast-paced and be able to juggle a million things at once. And what I mentioned to you before was that there are people that think I want to join 86-400, it sounds exciting, it's new. But when they get here, the speed and the way that we want to deliver things, they just can't cope. I mean, the project manager I got on for home loans lasted 1 day and he never came back because he couldn't foresee when I brought him on that in 10 months I was going to launch from absolute blank piece of paper a fully digital mortgage experience end to end. Because where he'd come from, it took 2.5 years to get into the broker channel with an existing process. So he couldn't see how in 10 months we could deliver a whole end-to-end experience.
Incredible pace, incredible focus, and obviously a culture which is promoting innovation at speed, which and not for everyone by the sounds of it. So that's a great insight. I would love to go back one step in terms of from a product perspective and a tech perspective, because I think what you've said is fascinating in terms of how you've considered the customer experience around a mortgage and how do you reduce the time to decision, be it yes, no, maybe, that's all valuable at every point. And how you're using data to be able to, I guess, replace perhaps it's artificial intelligence, and it'd be great to hear, technically, without disclosing trade secrets, of course, how you're using AI and your machine learning capability to then be able to take out or replace low value human tasks like data entry with your AI and machine learning to give this much better customer experience, and then obviously give you efficiency on the back end because you don't need human intervention to actually issue or decide on the risk of the customer.
Yeah, so I guess the way we've looked at it is that anything that can be done up front digitally will help our whole process. But it was also in our journey was looking through, and it's interesting when you work for an existing business, everything's just there. You never have to think about how that data gets through the system, because there's always someone at the other end that will just type it in anyway. But I guess what we've had to look at is, how can we do that without customer intervention? How can I get that piece of information to populate that loan offer document without no one getting involved? So for us, if you think about the traditional process, a customer provides, driver's license and passport, and it gets photocopied, and then they give pay slips and statements, and it all gets uploaded into a portal and gets sent off. And the broker has to obviously type everything in, work out how much they spend on groceries, how much they spend on education, and type all this in. For us, we do ID upfront electronically. The whole verification of identity process is done on a mobile phone. And then the income and expense collection, obviously that's what everyone knows as screen scraping, but we pull all the data in from customers' accounts. So that would be their credit cards, their transaction accounts, their savings accounts. And what we do is we run a whole lot of rules, of our credit rules, over that data when we pull it in. And when we populate the application bank and we categorise all the expenses, we pull out their employment income, their rental income, but we also run a whole lot of rules over that. So when it does get into the back office know if there is, if they're missing, 1 month's salary, or they're missing something over here, it will highlight things that we've learned about that data along the way before it even gets to the back office. So when it does get to the back office, they can look at these few things that it's highlighted, and can quickly look at it and work out if we can move ahead with it, or if we need more information. So the beauty of doing it up front by the customer is that we can put all those credit rules in before it even gets into the back office, which is obviously the difference to what happens today.
Just a quick follow-up question I'll throw to Alex with regards to when and has the first loan settled through your experience from a home loan? And what was it? Did you guys celebrate once the first home loan was actually settled via?
Well, I celebrated when the first application was submitted, because it actually went through. It's literally like looking at every part of the process and go, oh my gosh, thank God that worked. But yes, definitely first application submitted, first settlement, all of that celebrated along the way. I mean, it's huge to see when you put all of these systems and processes together that it actually does go all the way through. That was exciting for me.
That is such a good question, Mick. I love that, because you're right. I mean, this is one of the things, right? Like, we forget to celebrate these milestones because we're so caught up in the doing and the next thing and the fast pace. So I love how this conversation's going. So I kind of want to, like Mick's been asking the similar things, but I want to go back and listen to, so this concept of, so this poor hapless project manager who's come in for a day and then gone, oh my God, not for me. I can't even vision how this could be possible. But obviously you guys aren't doing this at pace by smashing people so that they're falling off the edge. You're doing it in a smart way, right?
Yep.
So I'd love to know, like, what in your background, because I mean, you've worked with the big guys, like Mick, introduced you earlier. What do you think what have you learned along the way? What skills are innate in you where you've adapted to this? And it sounds like it's a very entrepreneurial, iterative. We don't have thousands of resources everywhere. You've got to be smart. Like, it's a different skill set. Is that something that you reckon has always been in you, or have you kind of picked that up from mentors and different experiences, and that's made you able to thrive in organisations like this and what you're doing now?
It's interesting. I've never really thought about that, but I guess when I've worked at bigger banks, I've been extremely frustrated that I can't change or control the outcome because it's too hard to change. And when I worked on the Virgin Money business, that was a new home loan business, but that was with existing rails of Bank of Queensland, because they're owned by Bank of Queensland. And although I could make it look right on the outside, there's a whole lot of system and processes and things that you can't influence. And I guess I guess I like to think that what I do, I strive for perfection. I like it. You know, I know how I want it to be from a customer experience or a broker experience. And if I can't achieve that, I get very frustrated. So I don't know if it's a skill or it's just that I have the desire to make it how I want to make it. So I always, interestingly enough, I followed Adam Bank for many, many years because I wanted to work for a company like that. So when this came in my LinkedIn inbox, I was like, that is my job. That's got to be my job. But yeah, I don't know if it's a skill. I think it's a drive and it's a passion to do things better. I think that's where it comes from me. And I've, you know, obviously I've been in mortgages for so long. I see all the complaints from brokers and customers and what they're after. And that just makes me more driven to make it even better.
Okay, so I love this, and because I want to ask you a bit more about even just what you said then, because you know how we were all chatting before about when it's us and it's our lived experience, we kind of don't, because you're in it, you don't think much of it. But I love even what you just said there. You know, I knew the type of company I wanted to work for. I was following Adam Bank. When this came into my LinkedIn feed, I knew that was my job. I'd love to go a bit more into that because, as Mick knows, you know, our community watching us right now, you know, they're leaders of all shapes and sizes, some emerging, some C-suite and everything in between. And a lot of the questions we get, you know, about that, having the conviction to either, you know what you want and go after it and, you know, not sit there and hesitate and go, what if, just go, that is the thing I'm pursuing and going for that. Tell us a bit more about that, because I think this is something that, you know, a lot of our community asks, you know, how important's culture, what if, and you're just going, you know what, I knew that, or I had a vision for the sort of company I want to work for, and I knew it when I saw it. Tell us a bit more about that, because I love this.
It's just that I think I had that when I did those 2 online banking startups in the UK, and I got to work from the beginning and work out you know, what the whole mortgage proposition was going to be and what the journey was like. I actually just, I think it just gave me a new sense of energy and passion for what I did. I don't think working in finance or mortgages is very sexy at all, to be honest. It's not where I aspired to be. But I think where I've landed, I've got the best of, I think my job is one of the best in the industry, to be honest, because to start something from scratch is, you know, something you'll probably never get to do. But because I'd had that, you know, I'd done those 2 online banking startups. They were only short contracts and they never ever got to fruition. And then when I went to Virgin, I thought that was going to be the startup that I wanted to be, but it didn't end up that way. We ended up using Bank of Queensland systems and processes. It wasn't what I was sold, I guess, when I was coming in. So then when this came up, I just knew that I had to have a crack at doing something myself, and I knew that I wanted to do it a better way than what's out there now. And there's so much opportunity in Australia to make banking better, but particularly the home loan process better, that's just something I wanted to be a part of. So it's interestingly, I had 2 interviews here and it was called Project Sparkle back then. You had no idea who was backing it. You just turned up in an office, no idea, got interviewed by 2 people, walked out. And I was like, I don't even know who these people are, but I really want this job. And I had the second interview with our CEO, Rob Bell, and I walked out and I was like, I didn't get that job. Because he was so serious and you didn't feel like you got anything back. And so the next day when they rang and said you got it, I was just like the happiest person ever. It's just, I guess, and you know, I came in at the very beginning. I think I've actually been here 2 years and 9 months. So I'm really the first person to look at mortgages. So it was literally a business case and a PowerPoint deck, and there was nothing else. So the bit, you know, that when I say starting from scratch, I mean there was nothing.
I love the passion that comes through when you talk about what you're doing now, and so I think it's pretty obvious to see why you're so connected to it. You're absolutely loving it, and it's great to see people that have that level of enthusiasm as you're talking. With regards to, cast your mind forward, let's say 2 to 3 years, how do you think people will be consuming or, I guess, acquiring a mortgage to go and buy their first home? How have you factored that into your strategy with 86-400? You're leading the pack now, as you say, in terms of being able to do that on a only mobile, and within a year is quite incredible. What's it going to look like in 2 to 3 years' time, do you think?
Look, I think particularly in mortgages and with COVID, I think all the banks know that digital is the only way they can go. They need to change how they do things, and we've already started to see them changing parts of their process to be more digital, so that a customer doesn't have to see a lender or a broker in person. But I think for us, we need to keep ahead of the pack. So I see us as, what we've launched and where we're at today is just phase one. I see in 2 to 3 years' time, we need to be on top of the technology. We need to be appealing to a lot more customers. So we started more vanilla to start off with, and we need to be ahead of the game. So I think the other lenders will catch up to us in that 2 to 3 year time frame, but we need to be looking at what's coming and what's ahead and get there quicker.
And it's probably the next question is, what do you think, without giving away your strategy, but as you know, even though you might, everyone might know how to do it, it's not to say that they can actually execute and implement it, because these systems, these programs carry massive execution risk in doing it. What do you think that next wave of innovation is going to look like in the next 2 to 3 years? What will that look like? Because if it takes the competitors, a couple of years to catch up to where you guys are today, what will be the next piece that will tip it over?
I think it really is condensing those approval times. So we have designed a fully automated solution, but it's not fully automated yet. We're working towards that. So we have given approvals in under 2 hours. But what I really strive for is to give approval in 30 seconds a minute, or less. I want instant approvals, and that's what I'm striving for. And for me, that's the end goal.
That's awesome. Straight through processing will be phenomenal. I might throw to Alex because I can't steal all the questions.
Oh, it's a good flow. So it's fascinating. I think, and it's another great question, because you're right. You've got to think. Yeah, and what you're saying, Melissa, you're right. You can't rest on your laurels, right? Like you've got to keep thinking ahead. But it's the vision, and I think it's so clear when you talk about that North Star, call it whatever you like. When even if you never quite get there, or it's not quite the perfection that you dreamed of or desire, having that North Star to strive for, as you're describing.
Yep.
That's because I almost feel like it's big and hairy and audacious. But without it, it's actually harder, because you've got nothing to keep you on track and filter, the noise and the distractions and the people who say you're crazy. It's never going to work. So I love that you talk about that as well. Do you think will you broaden into, say, doing more things, for SMEs, or have you, from a customer perspective, have you got a vision around becoming broader or staying quite niche? What do you think?
We will definitely become a full-fledged bank, so all the products you'd expect from a bank. But that just takes time. So things like term deposits and personal loans and all those other things you'd expect from a bank, we will get there over time. I guess what we've focused on is getting the core things up and running and doing those really well. So we didn't want to be everything to everyone, because you just don't do it properly. So focusing on transaction savings, a great app, and mortgages, and really getting those businesses, pumping is been our key focus. And we will move on to other products, next year.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, because you're quite right, it's experience. If you can execute, as Mick said, execute so that people love what you do, then that opens the gate to the next thing and the next thing. I'm curious, before I hand back to you, Mick, I'm just curious about, you've worked in different markets and done loads of different things. Culturally, when you think about, tech and progressive smart banks and everything you're talking about, that, do you think in Australia, is it easier here? Is it harder than overseas? Like culturally, do you see any difference in terms of how easily you're accepted and embraced here versus other markets? I'm always curious about how you see that.
I'm not sure. I mean, I haven't been in the UK for many, many years, so I probably can't comment on that. But I think from a tech perspective, it's easier. It's really easy for me to sit here and say, talk about my experience when you start something from scratch, because it's so much easier to start something from scratch. You know, the big banks or the larger banks have a long road ahead of them to be able to utilize some of the technology we're using, just because it impacts so many other systems and processes and people. And that change in an organization is really difficult. We're a very small business of 110 people. Change here is part of the culture. Whereas if you're in a bank where there's 20 or 30,000 people, introducing one change to a mortgage process impacts so many people, systems. I really think that, you know, changing the people is just as hard as the systems and the processes.
Yeah, no, that's right. It's so complex, isn't it? Like, it's not just changing the tech, but it's the downstream impacts of what you're currently doing from a process perspective, and then having to retrain and be able to help people learn those new skills to, and potentially even reorganize your back office, because now the need for those functions has changed.
Yeah, and it's rewrite. It's not. It's changing processes, changing systems. It's changing people's behaviour and changing credit policy. Like, all of these things have to work together. And the beauty of doing something from scratch is you design it all together. But you know, you can't just change a credit policy and not change something else at a big bank. You have to have, you know, you have to work out the full solution. You can't just tweak here and there.
No, you can't. Now, it's funny how time just races by when you're having fun, because we're actually nearly out on time. Just one more quick question from me, Alex, if you don't mind. Alex is giving me the hurry on, and fair enough, before we go into the fast five. So, look, last one from me. Again, you know, we sit back in awe of what you guys are achieving at 86,400, being bankers or ex-bankers ourselves, and you know, massive kudos to yourself and the team more broadly. In terms of your own team that you're working with, you know, what are some of the attributes that you just really try and instill and engender in your broader team to ensure that you guys are delivering this, you know, wonderful product and have a wonderful service that you're giving back, not only to your people, but also more broadly then that they can pass on to the end customer?
For me, it's really about the focus on the broker and the customer. So broker being our first customer, obviously customer being the end customer, but making sure that their experience at any part of the process is as best as we can make it to be. So, you know, anyone who comes into the home loan team, all the focus is on how can we make this a better experience, and that's the whole focus of it. Because we know that if we have good experience, if we have good service, that obviously drives business. So that's my whole focus.
I love it. I was not giving you the hurry on me. Well, maybe a little bit. I told you, I said, Felissa, didn't I? I said it goes into some sort of time vortex. We're just chatting away, and before you know it, it's like 45 minutes has gone past, and we're always, but we had more to ask. So I think I said to you earlier, so Mick and I, we have a bit of fun to wind this up with our kind of, it depends, Mick, doesn't it? It's kind of fast 5, fast 10, kind of, you know, whatever's happening on the day. But this is what our audience loves to hear. So I'll kick off with my first question that I'd love to hear from you. So what advice would you give to someone who's starting out in their career? And it doesn't have to be financial services or banking. It's just, you know, when you reflect back, what's some advice that you give to, say, an emerging leader or someone just starting out on that career journey?
Oh, I think that that the world is your oyster, right? You can do whatever you want. I think that when you start as a grad in Westpac, you don't understand all the opportunities out there, but you know, it's people you meet along the way, it's different experience you get, and although you mightn't see it at the time, I guess all of it really helps you get to your next position and gets ultimately where you want to be. So in financial services, to be honest, I think it's a great industry in Australia to work in, and I've had some great opportunities. So I think, yeah, people should just be aware that they can be whatever they want to be and don't hold back.
Love it. Over to you, Mick.
What is a great book that's left a major mark on yourself personally or professionally?
I probably have to say, and I can't remember the names of all his books, but Richard Branson's books. I obviously worked at Virgin. I've met Richard a number of times. He's an amazing guy, but I just love his attitude of he can do anything, and he can get in, you know, he can go into Virgin Brides or Virgin Trains or Virgin Airlines or Virgin Bank. He can do all of these things if you put your mind to it. So I would have to say, yeah, Richard's books.
I love that. It's that real essence, that attitude, isn't it? That's kind of, you know, it's not about being scared of failure. I think that's super important. Try stuff, and if it doesn't work, try again. The one thing I always love to ask also, because I think especially as we go through our careers, and like you said so beautifully in terms of the advice to someone starting out, like you never know probably when you're in it, it's the experiences, the people, the failures, all of this adds up to who we are, right? So I always love to ask if there's one piece of advice that you've got from anyone, right? A mentor, a colleague, whoever, but is there a piece of advice that you've got along the way that you carry with you to this day?
I think it's never be afraid to give it a go. You know, early on in my career, I had a female boss and a female general manager who told me that you can be anything you want, you can do anything. And they would put me on more projects and more projects when I was like in my early 20s. And they just, and I would say, but I haven't done that before. And they're like, no, but you can do it, you can do it. So just having that attitude to give it a go and to keep trying and to, you know, actually you learn a lot from failure, but just don't be afraid of giving something new a go.
Beautiful.
Great advice, I think, for all of us. We all have doubts at times. Can't listen to that voice in the head, can we, in that regard? Next question from me. Who is a mentor or a great leader that you look up to or has had a marked influence on your career?
I'd probably say my first boss at Westpac was a woman, and she's also a great friend of mine now, but she was she was a high achiever and a promoter of me, and I guess that I always aspired to do as well as she has done, and I had a lot of respect for her. So I think that very first boss of mine in corporate world was the person that influenced me the most in my career.
Can you let us know who that was?
Her name is Sally Treby.
Fantastic.
Well done, Sally. I know people have lasting impressions, right? They make lasting impressions. Hey, last of these quick questions, and then we'll let you go. I always like to know, you know, with everything that's happening, not just COVID related, but just in terms of fast-paced, everything you're doing, what do you do to balance and energize yourself? Like what's the thing that fills your cup so you can keep showing up with your awesome energy and curiosity and enthusiasm?
Well, I mean, I have 2 children. They take up most of my time. And I'm also semi-renovating my house. So that's what I do on my off time. Yeah, I don't know. I just, I guess that's how I balance, you know, when you got kids, you sort of switch off because they want all the attention. So then my daughter, obviously working from home now, my daughter always comes home from school and goes, "Are you on mute?" And I'm like, okay.
Now.
And she knows I do something with brokers, but that's a bit about it. But yeah, no, I think it's my kids that give my balance to my life. It's completely different when I'm obviously looking after them.
Yeah, beautiful.
Well, Melissa, Christy, look, thank you so much for sharing your insights, your enthusiasm, your energy, as Alex has alluded to, and the fact that you've, you know, now built a bank inside a mobile inside 12 months and released the first mortgage, to renovating your house, to juggling a family life as well. It's just been wonderful to hear your insights, and I know our audience would have enjoyed it as much as we have. And as we say, you know, we have our audience of pushing us to bring guests back, and it may just be the case that we might be banging on your door early next year to come back for the sequel. But thank you for giving your time. You know, this is Digital First, a banking transformation series, and we'd certainly love to hear about your story at 86 400 more broadly.
Yeah,
thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure, Melissa, and absolutely echo Mick's sentiments. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, as always, on all those platforms out there. I hate not seeing your faces, but I love that you're all out there. So thank you for joining us, as always. If you haven't found our new platform yet, make your way there, because this is where you can watch everything live. Of course, it's a Thursday again. I don't know where these weeks are going, right? So thanks, a massive thank you to Melissa today. Next week, of course, we kick off again on Tuesday with our diversity series, where myself and Tiffany Slater co-host some more amazing women. There's a trend here. And no exception, next Tuesday, we have Margot Ling, who actually started Twitter in China, amongst other incredible achievements. So she's going to be fascinating. And then, of course, we've got Kate Harper on Wednesday, and much, much more. Now, for those of you who are also members, you know we do our circles every month. These are group mentoring, confidential discussions. And this Monday, I'm super excited because I get to co-host with George Haramis, who is an absolute I think, icon in this industry. Many of you would know George. He's been around for a very long time with a lot of experience as a leader. So if you'd like to join us, you just need to register via the platform at 12 on Monday, and that'll be a really great session, as always. And as a final thank you and shout out to our amazing corporate partners, there is nothing like building a community with like-minded people, and to have all of you as part of this community, and all of you beautiful people who work for our partners with us is immensely satisfying. And this is how we're going to change the conversation around diversity and equality in the industry. Thank you, everyone. Have a fabulous Thursday and rest of the week. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Melissa. And we'll see you again next week. Bye for now.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Melissa. Bye for now.